Good evening to all my fellow spiritually ratchet friends and family. Welcome to all of our new and curious. Just to catch you up, Spiritually Ratchet is a visual podcast that you can catch me on every Sunday evening live on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope. After that, I'll send out the audio podcast version on Spotify, Apple Music, and anywhere else that the Anchor streaming allows me to stream to. So who's Spiritually Ratchet? I'm Spiritually Ratchet. I'm Arbra, not Barbara. And I'm on my walk. I'm on my spiritual path to a deeper relationship with God. But at the same time, I'm just like you. I'm a sinner. I have questions. I've got habits. I've got views. I've got experiences. And they're not all squeaky clean. So I created a safe place for me and for people like me to talk about it. This is a judge-free zone. We'll discuss things that are too holy for the ratchet and too taboo for the spiritual. There'll be strong language, trust me on that. There will be adult content. I swear to God, adult is probably not even a strong enough word. There will be unpopular opinions. So this is definitely for the 18 and up and not a place where if you don't mind discussing the hard stuff and being uncomfortable, you can leave now. But there also will be tons of jokes. There will be understanding. There will be building of bridges. There will be love. There will be prayer. And prayerfully, there will be healing. Thank you again for hanging out with me and enjoy the show. Hi, everybody. Welcome once again to Spiritually Ratchet. Yesterday was a holiday that I'd never heard of before, but I like it, so I wanted to participate. It was celebrating Black poetry. So because of that, I've got a little video that I would like to play.
Sisterhood is more powerful than we can even comprehend. It's a community of women embracing each other. It's deeper than being friends. It's an I want to see you win and I want to see you flourish. It's a girl, you better get those coins. I see you walking in your purpose. Because we don't have to be besties and we don't have to talk every day. But just know that we are reflections of each other. If you win, then I win. Another woman paving the way. Another queen coming to slay. And if you're truly my sister, you'll lift me up when you pray. Because believe it or not, we're all going through something. And it's okay to not always be okay. My shoulders were built for sisterhood. Lean on them as you may. Sisters understand each other's tears more than anyone. So we should be the ones to help wipe them away. It's time to put the sister back in sisterhood. And I know all of this sounds a little cliche, but only we can give life to those words by allowing our actions to align with the words that we say. We are sisters. If I fall, I need to know that my sister is going to help pick me back up. If I feel defeated, I need to hear my sister saying, you're going to get through this, sis. Don't give up. If I fail, I need to be reminded that I'm still a winner. And if you see me getting chunky, lie to me. Tell me I'm getting thinner. Call me slim. Say, girl, you getting slimmer because we are sisters. If you need that push, I'm going to be there to push you into your greatness. And on those days when you feel unworthy, I'm going to remind you that you are absolutely amazing. And when folks try to bring up your past, I'm going to be sure to let them know that you are a survivor. And if you ever need someone to talk to, know that you can call me and I'll help lift you higher. And I won't judge you either. However, when you're slacking, I'm going to tell you you need to do better. Because I refuse to sit back silently and watch my sister settle or meddle in average. I'm going to get you right together and let you know you need to do something with all that awesome girl magic because we are sisters. And no, it's not always peaches and cream. We will get on each other's nerves. We will say things we don't mean. We will have disagreements and even jealousy is a factor. We tend to subconsciously compare ourselves to one another, and that in and of itself is a sisterhood disaster. The truth is, we all have flaws and insecurities and things that we can perfect. We are all evolving works in progress and just as equally a hot mess. We all have a tendency to be petty, overly emotional, and at times a challenge to deal with. But I'll take the good with the bad because I need my sister to pray and kneel with, to overcome and heal with, to cut up and chill with, to be open and real with, to connect and build with, to empower and fulfill with, because we are sisters. And there is no competition when you sincerely embody the true definition. When you make it your mission to be the spark and be the difference, then you will see that we are all simply connected with a twister. I am not only my sister's keeper, I am my sister.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
How are y'all?
Good. How are you?
I am great. Great. All of my sisters are here. And I didn't do it on purpose, but I've got all Ks. I love it. All right, so let's go around the way. Let's start with Cassandra. Who are you? What brings you here?
Other than me, I'm Cassandra, and I'm first I want to say thank you, Albert, for inviting me. I'm the founder of Voices of the Abused. Yesterday, I just had to leave my third annual event, and we had some trials and error, but we pushed through it. We had some great speakers. I kind of did a little different twist, but as opposed to last year, but I think it went well.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad you're here.
Yes.
Carrie, what about you?
Well, my name is Carrie. I'm the founder of an organization called We the Female. It's a nonprofit organization that, in short, we like to say we arm the women with education, confidence, and self-defense. I'm a domestic violence survivor. I got thrown into gun rights advocacy for women. Well, for all the people. I'm like Oprah with the guns. You get a gun, everybody gets a gun, and nobody should be, but particularly for women, nobody should be taking away our ability to choose how to defend ourselves. And I ended up finding I also had to become a firearms instructor. There were no female firearms instructors within 2 hours of me, and so I became a firearms instructor as well. And so I'm out there teaching all these women how to not be victims and use their right to vote. Oh, we lost the host. Hey, mom's gone.
Right. Well,
So
I'll go ahead and introduce myself, I guess. I'll wait for her to come back. So I'm Kim. I actually go to church with Arbra. Definitely have made quite the come up since my situation. I am a domestic violence survivor. And yeah, I'm just so all for everything domestic violence awareness and understanding and support and all of that. So that's why she wanted me to be here. So I'm here.
Well, and I think it's great. I'm glad you're here. This oh hey, she's back
on the internet all of a sudden, and I'm like, thank goodness that doesn't kick everybody out. See?
Wait, hide the cookies. She's back. I shared this to all of my platforms too.
Awesome. Thank you.
You know, so you're welcome. And so people may be asking questions or popping in on that.
Please do, just so you know. And I want to say hi to everybody. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope. If you don't know what Periscope is, that is the Twitter version of everything live. So hope you don't mind being seen because you're going to be out there. And then tomorrow.
I'm glad my Botox kicked in.
That's all right. Black don't crack, so I'm good right now.
Well, I know. Yeah, look, I'm an esthetician. I'm gonna tell you. So until you're like 65, and then you wake up one day and you're like, "What happened?"
You know what? My grandmother passed when she was 94, 95, and when I tell you her skin was still beautiful, and
so she took care of it, and yeah. Yeah, because black skin can get sun damage. People just don't realize that. And
it can. We do have to use SPF and all that good stuff.
Honestly, it's black women are one of the highest demographics for melanoma right now. So, interestingly enough, that's my day job. Other than teaching firearms, is I own a day spa and was one of the first got to be one of the first students in a class that actually taught ethnic skincare. It was actually a program that was written. So yeah, it was kind of cool. So I learned all kinds of fun stuff. And
so you're going to come back and you're going to tell us all about self-care on my self-care show, right?
Absolutely. I would love to. I'm all about that. I have somebody that I would love to have on your show. Listen to me inviting people up on your show. Her name is Tasha, and she's a firearms instructor, and she's tactical social worker. And so her whole thing is, look, she says, we do our hair like culturally, right? Because culturally it's hair, nails, and everything for black women. And she says, you spend all that money on that, and you're not going to protect it? And I'm like, that's amazing. So she does all kinds of like self-care queen weekends and teaches them like self-care, and then teaches them how to protect themselves. I'm like, she is in it. Like, she's
self-care too, just so
well.
Cheers.
I'm from the trailer park, so we just get that shit out of the bottle and just keep going.
I'm not even going with you today. Kim, did you introduce yourself? I'll have to go back and listen to it. Okay. Awesome. So everybody's met everybody. So let's see if I can actually get my banner up this time. It was just a welcome to the Spiritually Ratchet podcast as my kid falls down the stairs. Thank you. I appreciate it. I needed a mirror because I don't know why, but he brought me a mirror.
That's okay. He's helping.
He just wanted to be seen. Alrighty. So today's show is about domestic violence awareness. So October is Domestic Violence Awareness, and we had mental health last Saturday. So our Sunday show was all about our mental health and making it okay to discuss and go get therapy. And one of the things that we talked about was not everything has to do with mental illness that causes us to need help. A lot of women especially have to deal with the after effects of abuse, which give us PTSD and several other things that can mimic a mental health issue and still need to be treated as such. So I felt like this was an important topic to tackle. So my first question to all of you, and I don't care who goes first, is what does domestic violence look like for you, in your opinion, so that some of our listeners can get an understanding of what maybe they need to look for or understand what they're experiencing?
I teach this. I actually do outreach with this. So I'll let y'all ladies go first, and then I can.
To me, honestly, I don't think is really a look. I mean, if you're actually in the situation, you kind of know after a certain point, you kind of know that you're in it. Now, the thing is, what we're going to do about it? Because a lot of us, and we talk about it all the time, a lot of us, we're in it, but we don't want to do anything about it, whether we're afraid or we don't have anywhere to go. But it's you have to be actually in it to know what it really looks like. Because someone on the outside, because we can hide it all day long, we can smile and you don't know what we're feeling like on the inside, but you have to be actually in it to know what it looks like or what it feels like. But to me, it's just not a visible look. It's not a visible look, but that's my opinion.
Okay. Kim?
Well, so for me, I definitely agree that there's not just a cookie cutter look for what it is. I think that domestic violence is not just somebody beating up somebody else or putting hands on. There's so much more to it, along the lines of like financial abuse and emotional abuse and all of that. From my experience, everything started with, I call it, actually, when I talk to people about it, I say it's like being brainwashed. Somebody's basically telling you that you're less than, and it's not just specifically those words, but they're finding ways to kind of get in your head, and you're falling for it, and you're in that, you're in whatever they're saying. That's you're grasping it and you're living it, basically. And then from there it may lead to violence possibly, but it starts with some form of abuse, and that's really where, like I said, I consider it a brainwashing thing. So it's not a cookie cutter. It's not something that I want to say that you can look from the outside and definitely see every time. You may be able to see it, but you're not going to see it every single time. You may.
Sorry about that.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine.
No.
But yeah, sorry. That's what I think. It's not something cookie cutter. It's not something that I think that you'll be able to just see it and know unless you've been there. I know that I've been in situations where I'm at a grocery store and I can just tell, like, there's just I have that feeling, and I see how this man's talking to this woman or what have you, and it's just the way she's reacting to it. I can tell because I've been there. I've been in that place, but there's a lot of controlling. There's a lot of self-esteem. There's a lot of like I said, it seems to be like almost like brainwashing, in my opinion. So that's what I would say it looks like. It looks like brainwashing.
All right. And Carrie?
Are you sure you're ready for this? All right.
Probably not, but go ahead.
Get your drinks, girls. So I got thrown into domestic violence rights advocacy and self-defense advocacy. I am a survivor, and what these ladies are saying is absolutely true. And like the brainwashing, or what a lot of people will call, and is commonly called gaslighting. I was just going to say, yeah, gaslighting is what it is. And there's a detachment in with people about what it looks like. And typically, right, there's some societal acceptance that domestic violence is when they hit you. But it never starts with hitting. In fact, it just the opposite. They tend to worship you, and they tend to treat you. I remember when I was in the hospital, I was beat up on Thanksgiving. The last time I was, and we were actually separated. So, that was one of the things that she said. I bet when to paraphrase it, there was a lot involved, but she said, I bet when you first got together, you were his queen. And which is absolutely true. And it's those manipulations that start to happen, and it's little pieces at a time. I mean, I was a successful business owner, very successful business owner, and very strong, very independent. And when people found out that I was being abused, well, you of all people? Well, yeah, because it can happen to anyone and at any time. And I hid it so well that they had no idea. And but I had gotten to the point where I was so broken that I couldn't even cook dinner, because I was yelled at if I cooked dinner, if I didn't do it, or I was yelled at because it wasn't done right. And so that's how they progress, because they have to and understand. Let me be clear when I say this. When an abuser is doing this, I'm not defending them, okay? But they legitimately believe what they're doing, right? They do not think that they're narcissists. It's a narcissist, borderline personality disorder, sociopathy. They legitimately don't think that they're doing anything wrong, right? Because they genuinely think that they are being victimized by you. And that's the dangerous manipulation that happens with domestic violence, and how they're able to get in our heads. And especially they tend to find people that are more of the empaths. A lot of times they'll look for empaths, or people that are in caregiving roles, or, I own a day spa, right? So I, to take care of ladies. So it's easy to manipulate that. And what starts to happen is it all becomes your fault. And so you can't, like Cassandra was saying, you don't leave because it's your fault. Like if you had just not XYZ, then they wouldn't have done this. And that's part of the problem that people don't realize. And so one of the things that pisses me off the most, I mean, I spoke on the Capitol lawn in DC last year, and there was a guy, as I was speaking about domestic violence and self-defense, there was a dude in the my girlfriend was there. She heard it. The dude says, well, I just don't understand why they don't leave. after the first time they get hit. And my girlfriend turned around and looked at him and said, "You must be an abuser yourself." And she was ready to start a fight in the middle of the thing. But I can guarantee you that his wife is probably emotional. If right, so he doesn't think that he's being abusive because he's doesn't hit her, right?
But that's the least of it. That's the least of it. And actually, sitting where I sit now, I would rather be hit than the rest of the stuff sometimes, because at least getting hit ends. You heal from that, the bruises go away, and it's a momentary pain.
Well, and you feel like you can justify it to other people that may be looking at him going, "He's so nice. I don't understand this," right? But the minute he hits you, right, now you have something tangible to hold on to explain to people, "Nah, I mean, this dude's a dick, and this is what he's been doing the whole time." So,
right. Let me catch up on some comments real quick. Michelle said gaslighting was huge in hers, and I told her that, I definitely agree with that. Gaslighting is an issue, and we gaslight ourselves sometimes, just to make it through. We give those justifications. Lori said, "Kim, you've got some good points." Michelle said that, her abuser used all versions, even physical and sexual. Nikki brought up that she's seen some fear that women have. Then Michelle said, "I have since taken jiu-jitsu and I have my carry license and keep it at home. I took these to finally end my nightmares, which was after 10 years.
Yeah, so Michelle, that happened to me. I've always been pro 2A. I'm like a hardline anti-party constitutionalist, and so I believe, every liberty for everybody, and so I've always been pro 2A even before I was a gun owner. But I had those horrible paralyzing, my nightmares were the kind that wasn't just paralyzed in my sleep. I would wake up, be fully conscious, and have my legs paralyzed or my vocal cords were paralyzed, and I couldn't. Yeah, that was freaky. That was super freaky. And it wasn't until I remarried, and my husband, we put a shotgun on the rail of the bed. And look, I'm going to tell you, ladies, like, if you get comfortable enough with a gun, I'm going to tell y'all, they're like potato chips. Like, you ain't going to have just one. They're a hell of a lot of fun. And it's a very powerful feeling once you have those. But I did go through PTSD therapy, which is its own, like, I did the EMDR therapy, which is kind of controversial for some people, but that made it worse for a while. But the shotgun on next to my bed is what helped. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so my next question, and actually let me add a little bit to that. So for me, some of the things that I see as far as domestic violence, and some of the things that I believe are things of domestic violence, I post it every time I see it. The silent treatment is abuse.
Mm-hmm.
It is
absolutely.
It is abusive.
Control.
It doesn't necessarily have to just be a boyfriend or a husband. It can come from different types of people. That family is the domestic part. Just because it's not your significant other doesn't make it any less of a domestic violence situation. Sometimes it can come from our kids, especially grown kids who are, hitting that teenage adulthood, who are rebelling. There's several different versions of it. But when it comes to the treatment, anything that you have to repeatedly tell someone that hurts you, that's showing lack of respect, when they intentionally use that to keep pushing those triggers, to keep poking and prodding, all of those are forms of manipulation and abuse.
Yep.
So it's always interesting to see how it starts, because mine didn't start physically until 5 years or so into the whole situation. And at that point, I know this person and he's never hit me. And, why would I think 5 years later that I would get hit?
Yeah.
It's really interesting. So, excuse me. What, and I know, Carrie, you just mentioned it. I had a problem leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get into my problem leaving, but what could you tell someone or advise people who are looking to be of assistance? And all of you answer this question. Talk to somebody who you feel like needs to hear how to get out.
Yeah, and that's tricky, right? Because like for all the reasons that the ladies mentioned, particularly the financial one being a big one, children being a big one. You know, and you go as far as you start getting deeper into my lane, right? They threaten to kill you or your children or your family, right? That's a whole other component of it. There's all of these things. But for someone who suspect, like I believe it was Kim, you said that you know when you've been there, you know, right? But you can't. Right, the minute that you step in and you start with the you need to and you should, like they're going to shut down. So typically what I do is I tell people that come to me, because I usually get probably 2 a week that come to me across all my different platforms to ask about this. And I say, look, the first, particularly coworkers, right? That's a big one. And a lot of times they're male coworkers, which is really kind and actually huge. You have to develop a relationship with the said victim and get them to trust you and genuinely, like not as a manipulation piece, but like you've got to be able to create a relationship where they can trust you and then allow them to come to you slowly. And you know, and it's things like just take them to lunch one day, let them talk, right? Let them talk, let them talk. You know, little business lunch, you know, from like while you're at work or whatever. And then, you know, if that goes well, invite them again and then invite them to dinner and just get them talking about their lives. And the more that they'll do that, eventually they'll start to feel like they can trust you. Like you're not going to lecture them, you're not going to judge them, or more importantly, which is one of the other things that really happens is people don't realize if they've met him or they know him, right? A lot of times the fear is that nobody will believe the victim because he's such a nice guy to everybody else. I just can't believe that he did that. You know, and a lot of times families are an issue because their families often, you know, the abuser's parents are going to obviously stick up for him because he learned that somewhere, right? Right. But a lot of times you'll see it on the other side too, and you can also really see it in with church environments sometimes, where religion, the whatever church that you're in, I shouldn't say religion, but the church can keep you there. Like I have a situation with a young lady now who's peripherally, her daughter's being sexually assaulted, and the church is burying it. But and they teach that, well, you just need to be able to work it out with your spouse, you know, and kind of thing. And so there are lots of those reasons why. So just develop that relationship, allow them to trust you, because you're not going to get them out right away. It's not going to happen. And at this point right now, what you need to do is just give them the resource. And it's going to, let me be on, I got to tell you something, because this is one thing that I wish people that would have told me when I started with this. Some of these girls are going to frustrate the fuck out of you. They're irritated, right? Because you're going to be listening, like you're going to go to lunch twice a week, right? Say, for example, and all you're going to do is hear the same bullshit every day. And you're just like, get the fuck out, right? And it's frustrating because you're in a position where there is nothing that you can do about it but listen, right? And start planting those little seeds here and there. You don't deserve that. You don't, right? And it's those affirmations. And it can be exhausting, right? So there'll become a fine line for you, though, where you're going to have to be able to set a boundary for yourself, right? Because you can't continue to help somebody or be willing to support or help somebody if you're not taking care of yourself and you're starting to take that shit home on you, right? So it is very important. And because I deal with them all the time, and I deal with them in a self-defense capacity, right? Teaching them how to use guns. I'm very hypersensitive to that. And so, you know, you have to get to a point sometimes where you just have to say, you know what? When you're ready, let me know. Yep. And just set that back off, right? And they'll come to you. And if they're you know, it's one of those things where, particularly as women, right? Because we're savers, right? We're fixers. You know, we want to make it better. We want to nurture. That's inherent in who we are, right? We're born to be that way. Some of us more than others, but I mean, for the most part, that's right. The mama bear instinct. And that really, I think, happens particularly for our sisters, right? For other women. And hey, I have a fan up in here because I'm like, I get a little hot flashy sometimes.
What are y'all's opinions?
I kind of, Carrie, I agree with you, and part of you I disagree. And the part I disagree, and it's okay, you know, I can beg to differ. The part I disagree is when you said that, you know, they kind of, you know, because you hear the same story over and over and over. But we were them too, you know, people get, you know, we were sharing that same story of, you know, talking to people about, you know, the people that we trust, and we wanted to share our story with. We was talking and we were saying it over and over and over as well. So that's why I disagree with you. Because, and yes, we want to, you know, especially when we come across someone that we know that they have been abused, and because we have been in that situation, we can identify it.
Right.
You know, yeah, we agree that there's no really look, but then at the same time, if we have been in that situation, because I could be in a store and I can kind of sense some things. I don't know if that be a woman's intuition or what it is, but I can kind of almost sense some things, especially when I see a couple, or if I see maybe a female, just, you know, her body language. But we have to be patient with them just as well as we wanted that patience from someone else.
No, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly. I think we're actually agreeing, just maybe saying it differently, because we do have to be patient with them. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, when you want, you know, you like you say, you want to gain that trust from them. Well, share your story. Share with them how you got out, and make them, because once you share that story, because a lot of times people don't know what you really have gone through. So when you go deep with them, you know, you may open that door, maybe open that avenue for them to share a whole lot with you and share with them, and it may work and it may not work. You know, depend on their situation, because everybody's situation is different. They may not have nowhere to go. My situation, I'm here in Texas. I'm from New Orleans. I'm here in Texas. We relocated here in Texas. I had no family here. I felt like I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't have no out.
Oh. Damn it.
Right.
So come back in just a second. Kim, what about you?
So I would say I want people to not give up. It is hard.
Exactly. Right. Yes. So we have to be we have to be open for them just as well. We needed that openness as well.
Well, and so let me I think we're saying the same thing. And
let Kim get her point out.
Oh, I thought you were done, honey. I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
No, I was waiting for Cassandra. She popped back in.
I'm done. We can go right ahead.
I think that we need to avoid giving up on people who are going through it. I know that that's a common question. Why didn't she leave? Why are you still with him? Why are you still putting yourself through this? I actually had friends who told me that I'm not going to sit around and watch you go through this. And I thought I was being this ride or die chick, and you know, all this, that I'm going to stay with him through the hard times. And so I stayed. I kept going through the same thing over and over. And I really think that we struggle with just being like, well, she wants to be there.
Right.
And when you get to that point, it's the same as anything. When you get to that breaking point, that's when it's time to go. That's when you're ready to leave. And that's when you need people the most, who are going to step in and who are going to be there for you and who are going to help you through it. But if everybody just kind of gives up because you didn't leave the first time, then who is going to help you? And I like the idea that there are so many more resources available than there was back when I was going through this. At least that I couldn't tell you what all was available to me back then. I can tell you so many resources that are available now. With all these slick ways to make sure nobody knows what you're doing, that you're trying to leave. But as far as people helping, I think that it's the most important thing is for you know, if you know somebody who you know for a fact is going through this, just to stick by them and continue to love them and support them, even though it hurts for you to watch them go through it. But just to stay there and stay available to them, so that when that time comes and they're actually ready to leave, you can be there with them. And also to understand that there is a possibility that they're going to go back. And it's not to say that they are giving up. It's not to say that they're a lost cause, and there's not to say that you didn't help them properly, but it really is, it's psychological. And so just saying I'm gonna leave the first time doesn't mean that you're gonna leave the first time. The second time, the third time, I mean, it may take several times, but just don't give up. Stay patient and stay there for them. Stand firm with them. And I mean, I would say just continue to pray for them and help them to get an out as soon as they're ready to actually take that step and leave. Every single time. Every time I would say to stand with them and help them leave every single time, no matter what. That's really the support that people need when they're going through this. They need to know that you're going to be there for them and you're not giving up on them.
Well, and so I want to clarify, because I think we're saying the same thing. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that I want to make sure everybody also understands is sometimes we don't ask for your help because we know that we're not going to leave yet, or we know that there's certain things that we have to get in order before we can leave. And that was one of the things for me. I knew I had A through Z to get through before I could go anywhere.
Right.
Because I knew he had connections. I knew he had law enforcement connections. I knew he had legal connections. I knew that me walking out had to be so perfectly crafted that it didn't matter what he threw at me afterwards, he couldn't come back and hurt me or my child. And that was the only thing that made me leave, was the kid. So when we're dealing with people like that, and what I did was I didn't tell a lot of people in my family or my close friends what exactly was going on, because I don't know whose mic that is. I'm just going to mute y'all. I didn't know what was, I didn't tell them what was going on because I didn't want them to know that I was staying through it. So I stayed and planned, and I took my time, which probably, for a lot of people, they felt that was the wrong thing to do. But I took my time, and when I was able to leave, I never went back, and I never had to worry about having the back and forth where he was showing up and all that, because I created a community around me. I had friends that sat on the front porch with their guns going, "Show up, please." So it took time, and it took a whole lot of soul searching to get to that moment. And it didn't matter what anybody else said. It didn't matter how many times they offered to be there for me or to help. I had to want that for myself, and I had to do it my way. And it probably wouldn't have worked if I had done it for anybody else.
Right.
No, that's true. And it's, I did the same thing you did. I planned it. I saved money and plotted and planned it until I got out. And I think I want to, and I apologize. I'm getting, y'all aren't freezing. I'm just getting like weird skipping. So I think you've stopped talking. So I apologize. I don't know. It's just this weird kind of thing, but it's not like freezing up. So it's just something, it's kind of going off and on. But it's, when I say boundaries and to step back, it's not to not be there when they're ready. I mean, obviously, but it's because we can become so consumed with wanting to be there that we can lose ourselves, and then it can be toxic for you, and that's, you want to make sure that you're careful with that, right? Because you'll watch them, right, and you'll know when they're closer to ready or not ready. I mean, you'll start to see some patterns and stuff. But and the more you, like, if you become really active working with it too, you'll see that more and more as well. You'll start to identify those signs and stuff. But yeah, when I say that, that's, I mean, I agree. Like, I'm with them on everything that they're saying. I think I was just saying a little differently. Coming from a place that works with these women every single day, you gotta have like your shields up for you. But that doesn't mean don't be there when they're not ready. I mean, absolutely, you want to make sure that you're there. And I mean, and there's little, I mean, like, you don't even be surprised. Like, just have them come spend the night at your house one night. You know what I mean? If that's just to give them a break, sometimes that's all they need.
That's hard to do, because that was not going to happen in my world.
Right.
Well, right, and yes, and that's what I was just going to say. For some women, that it can't. That was what I was going to say. Yeah, some women, they can't get out at all. Like they're isolated completely and not allowed, especially probably like Cassandra and Kim. Did you move too? But I know that, like you said, you moved, right? And did you move someplace where he had more of a support system than you did? Did you move for him, or did you?
Lord, we moved a few times, and no, I moved away from him. After he put me in the hospital, found out I was pregnant, and then moved him back because I was pregnant.
Right.
Yeah, and then we didn't have anybody. We moved from California to Texas. In Texas, we had nobody.
Right.
And then later on, we moved to Colorado with my family, but that didn't stop him from trying to do, what he was doing. He got a little less physical because I had my family around. We were actually living with my family, but that didn't stop anything else.
Yeah. That's an interesting point. So did your family, like looking back, did they realize it? Or did they, what was that? Because obviously if they're living in a house with you, at some point they're going to catch on to something, right? I would think. Did that happen or?
I mean, they knew that he's the one who put me in the hospital, but I would not point my finger at him. They knew that something was going on beforehand because just ultimately because he was isolating me. He was really just keeping me separate. I didn't have family around, and he would make it so that I was busy when they called. He would always just arrange something to be happening so I couldn't answer the phone. It was always like, the phone's ringing, let's talk now. Or just something like that. So it was always something. So they knew something was going on. And then when we went to live with my family, they already had their feelings. They knew what was going on. But again, he wasn't physical, and they were trying to give us space as a married couple. And I'm very private. I'm very, very private. And he is also, we've always been the same way, where we keep everything between us. So, we wouldn't talk in front of them very much. It was just, everything was just like, it was a secret ultimately. So they didn't realize a lot of what was going on until after, when I was done and I finally had him arrested, and I mean, he was extradited. It was a whole thing. But whenever that happened, then I started telling them, and they started realizing what was really going on. They were like, I noticed this, I noticed that, but they never, they didn't realize it was as serious as it was in that moment. But
so we have a question. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying that my family, they'd never really been in that situation to really be able to stop and identify what they were seeing.
And that's something that I want to hit back on in just a second. We have a question from Paul. He says, what about if you know the person is in danger? First and foremost, if they're in imminent danger, immediate danger, call the cops.
Yeah.
Immediately. Definitely call the cops. But if you know that it's one of those building situations where, they are not going to say yes to the cops if the cops show up, and that's going to cause more trouble after the cops leave and all of that. Really, in my opinion, the best thing to do is make sure that you provide them with the information of, call me when you're ready and I'll answer and I'll be there. I am, be an escape.
I say anytime a person is in a physically abusive relationship, they're always in danger. It's just that's the nature of the relationship. They're always going to be in danger until they're out of it. But it's just like Arbor said, if it's imminent danger, if it's something that is in process right at this moment, I would always say call the cops. And realistically, I mean, you don't know what the outcome is going to be, because as a victim of abuse, I covered for my ex-husband so many times. But you as the person, the bystander, that's what I would say is do whatever is necessary to make it stop. Because one thing that I've learned is that the abuser is in control. So he or she, I will say, they can stop. They can stop if the phone rings and they want to answer it. They can stop if somebody comes to the door and make it seem like nothing's going on. They're in control of the situation. So all you're doing is taking a step as much as you can, and hopefully the cops are going to see something where they can come in and do some sort of separation of the two people. But it's not always the case. But I would always encourage anybody to at least try.
One thing I can say for the ladies, I know I learned, if there is an incident where the police get called, and if there's any way to make a police report. Every chance you get, make one.
Yes. Yes.
Every single chance you get, make one, get a case number, lock it away, set it somewhere, because at the end of the day, when it's time to go to court for custody, when it's time to get the divorce or anything like that, you can't bring up anything you don't have proof of. And two, if you don't bring it up then, it's not going to be admissible later if you want to come back to court.
Right.
If you don't have it all that first time and you put it all out there, they wouldn't let me bring it back in because they said you should have told us the first time. There's a way to make a report, always do so.
Yeah.
So that's getting really into my lane because I work with cops and, with what I do with the outreach with self-defense and that's a huge issue. So there was a case in 2005. There was Castle Rock versus Gonzalez. It was out of Colorado. And that case, the short of it is that case went to the United States Supreme Court. And that was the case where the United States Supreme Court ruled that law enforcement has no legal obligation to protect you. So, and it was a domestic violence case that started that. And a lot of people don't know that. It became that particular ruling came to the forefront again recently with the Parkland, the Stoneman Douglas shooting, because the kids in the family sued and they sided with the cops and people lost their minds, but that's because this case had happened. So side note of that, one of the things, think about this for those of you that are watching, what does your cop cars not in your cities not say anymore? They don't say to protect and serve anymore because they don't have to. So with cops, I know everyone's gonna go look now because that's usually what they do. They're like, oh my God, I just know, because you just don't pay attention to it. But there's a reason. So law enforcement despises showing up to domestic calls. They hate it because they're dangerous for them. So that's why they always, after it's the Castle Rock versus Gonzalez case that created this, where they go in, they go as pairs, if you notice, and they never go in. They'll never go in the house until they can get. They try to get one out of the house, and then to separate them that way because they won't come in because they're afraid of getting killed.
I was a dispatcher, and what we have to do when we dispatch them out is we send them to a location, but we also send multiple backups, and we get and they have to wait until their backup gets there in order to approach the situation, unless there's imminent danger going on, and then they can go and stop it, or they can go and have someone come out, but they don't go into the residence.
Well, and that's when, of course, that varies by state too, right? Because here we've got we've got a couple of laws now in our books where a couple of things have happened. One of which being what they call I-940 became a law, and now we've got this. Like they've been on there, they were on that quasi defunding bullshit, defunding the police bullshit long before that was cool, right? Where the cops had to go through all this training and they have to de-escalate at all costs before using deadly force, which is smart, right? We as gun owners when we talk about self-defense, that's important for you to do as well. That being said, that's putting that cop in a position like, do I react? Do I not react? And that seconds count, right? So that's where I step in and I'm like, what can we do to get these women to understand their own self-defense? And that's where, like, I hate that argument where people are like, well, everybody needs to own a gun. False. If a woman is not ready to pull that trigger to defend her life, she's going to have it used against her. So I run that fine line with trying to build that self-esteem and get them to understand that. But there's all kinds of other things that we can teach them in the interim.
The household that you're in, like, I got rid of all the guns because of the situation.
Because of that, right? Exactly, and that's because, remember, for those of you that are listening to this, right? She thought it was her. Everything was her fault, and she believed that to her core. So therefore, if she had pulled that gun up to defend her life against him, he was going to get. He's already.
That wasn't me.
Right.
I knew it wasn't my fault.
Good. Okay.
And I was the only one that stayed. Because the family abandoned. I justified it myself, but it wasn't my fault. I knew it was his issue. I was just going to try and love him through it, and there was no way that I could love him enough. And that's something that it took me a while to learn. Yeah. But I did what I could to get him the help that he needed, because he did have legitimate mental issues. He did have substance abuse problems. There were things that were going on that he legitimately needed help for, and I thought. But when he was properly medicated, when he was not drinking, you couldn't have asked for a better partner.
Right. And that's the frustrating part about like dealing with that with
where,
like gun owners and stuff. Oh, sorry, you're cutting out again.
Your friends know him and he's this great guy. And then, you get to a point, because I was also very young when it started. So he'd had all these years to manipulate and build on my psyche, because at 17, you don't know any better. You thought you did, but you really don't. And now you're in this situation where it's like, I really let this dude do this to me. And, you're looking back on it and you don't realize how under his thumb that you were. And a lot of people are sitting there going, well, I'm like you, I'm this business owner. I am this strong woman and I do this for a living, or I've got these connections, but it's still happening to me. And they don't want the stigma. And that's something else that I wanted to make sure that we talked about, because we blame and we shame. You shouldn't have stayed, you shouldn't have this, you shouldn't have that. There's people stuck and they're dying because people on the outside are judging what they're going through.
Exactly.
And that's something that we definitely have to be mindful of. Cassandra, what were you saying? Cassandra, did you say something?
No, I was saying exactly. I agree with you. People are judging.
So just give me an idea of something that you would want someone who is sitting in that judgmental seat. You should have left, or, how could you let him do that to you? What would be your response to that?
Look, I can tell you the first day it started, and people are like, are you serious? I can tell you the first day he got in my head. We were walking down the beach and this girl walked by and he said, that's the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. Oof. And everything in me, I was young and I was already feeling a little ways because I was slightly overweight and all this stuff. And so I just was immediately like, wow, so that's what pretty is. And so what do I need to change about myself? That fast, to the point, like fast forward a year or two to where I'm really literally saying to him, nope, I was pregnant with my daughter. And I told him, nobody's ever going to want me because I'm a mom now. Like, I have a kid and all these other things are already wrong with me. And now I have a child. So you can't go anywhere. And I think that people need to understand, they need to really truly understand that there's so much, it's so much deeper than just somebody hit you and you stayed. It's so much deeper than just the physical, and people don't understand the financial. They don't understand how just destroying it is. My ex-husband started before he ever laid his hands on me, just like we were saying earlier. It all started way before the first time he touched me, but way before I ended up in the hospital. Everything came about because of that one statement that I can honestly recognize. I can sit here and say that's the first day that I questioned myself, that I questioned who I was, that I wasn't sure if I was worthy, if I was good enough. Like, that was that first day. And there's so much more to it than people realize. There's so much more to it than people even give, I guess, us as survivors. They don't give us a credit for how much we actually had to go through to get out of this situation. Even after my husband was arrested and after he was extradited, it still took everything in me to not go back to him, because that's where I just that breaking those chains, breaking those thoughts, breaking that entire thought pattern was the hardest thing. I felt like I was grieving. Grieving divorce is one thing, but having to change your entire mindset is something else. And it literally took so many people who were in my corner at that time to get me through it. I didn't have my relationship with God at the time at the way that I wanted it to, but I'm so thankful that He surrounded me with the people that He did, to walk me through this process and to get me through it. but it's just not that simple. It's not as simple as people think, and I really think that's where people are missing the point of what we're doing, of why it's so important to get the awareness out there, of why people can't just pick up and leave.
Absolutely. I can identify with so much of that. It's like, where to even start? I've been in there for 5 years, and it's years of abuse that I didn't recognize because they situate themselves as your savior. You are the best thing since sliced bread. I mean, when I tell you, no one could look at me funny, no one could disrespect me, nobody could talk back to me. If you came at me sideways, that man would chew you up and spit you out, if not physically harm you. He would not let any harm come my way. And you have this really warped sense of, he's my protector. I can go out in this world because he's got my back. But then he's the one that's hurting you.
Lord, yes.
And it's they don't understand that dynamic, because now you're afraid of everything in the world. And you kind of know this, this is a familiar hell.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, when you have to get out of this familiar hell, you have to relearn how to live. You have to learn how to go shopping and not be on a time clock. You have to learn that it's okay to go out and not check in. You have to recreate your entire mindset that they have taken hostage over,
right,
for years. And there's things that I still do now that are automatic, like trigger responses, because I'm used to, it's just easier if I go ahead and do this so that I don't create a problem later, kind of mindset.
Right.
And a lot of people didn't understand that, and they kind of judge you for, oh, well, you're grown. Okay, but if I don't, you don't know the hell that's going to cause.
Right.
Yeah. You mentioned the the mindset and just how it's easier to kind of get into that and do what you need to do to make it easy, and the trigger responses and all that kind of stuff. And I want to touch on that. There is I just texted my husband in the other room if he knows where they are, because I've got some books to share with y'all. So what happens with when you have PTSD, and all survivors have it. Your brain, a lot of people don't, I didn't know this till recently, actually. Even though I went through the EMDR, which is a very controversial therapy. I went through that, and I still didn't get it until this, actually it was a member of the clergy. It was his wife that told me about these books, and she taught psychology or whatever. But the brain, the brain that has been traumatized, in an effort to heal itself, will literally rewire itself. So the neurons rewire the paths that go through. And so one of the biggest things, like you're talking about judgmental, and this even transcends into when they do leave, right? Is to understand that if you say something and that trigger, like it happens, right? And a victim responds in a way that you find is oversensitive or whatever, understand that they don't have control over that. Like it is a literal biological response of survival, right? And so you may look at them and think that they're not in survival mode, but their brain has been rewired to stay in survival mode. And that's why, like looking at veterans coming back from war, that's why it's so obvious and why they're used for that conversation more. But all of that stuff applies to victims too.
The way that, and we talked about this last week when I was speaking with the psychologist who came on the show. What happens is you get into this pattern of things. It's muscle memory. Your brain is a muscle. It's muscle memory and how you react. For instance, silence was a thing for me. If I knew he was silent for too long, I knew there was a buildup. So I wouldn't let it be silent. And I would have these conversations and try and kind of head it off at the path. But that was an automatic thing for me. And silence to this day still bothers me really, really bad. There was a name that he used to call me. And every time I would hear that name, I would literally have a physical body reaction where it would, sometimes I would be nauseous, sometimes I would have a panic attack, sometimes it would just, it'd be hives, whatever it was, there was a physical body reaction. And recently, and last week was the first time I've ever spoken about my abuse publicly. But I've gotten a chance over the course of the year to get, back into therapy and make a lot of headway and change a lot of things. So I've been able to talk about it. Well, somewhere along the way, somebody called me by that name. And I didn't have a response. Nothing happened. And I freaked out that nothing happened, and I called my therapist and I was like, oh my God. She's like, this is what guilt feels like. She's like, it's okay. You'll get to a place eventually where you won't have a response. And that freaked me out so bad because I have lived for the last 15 years carrying that response. And now when you don't have it, you don't know what to do. We become addicted to that fight or flight adrenaline rush. We become addicted to trauma. So now when our lives change and we are trying to get that mindset adjustment, we are kind of lost. We don't know what to do with ourselves. We don't know how to respond to a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. And of course, in some cases, what does that come out as? It comes out as projecting anger and then you can actually become someone that people might perceive as being abusive, right? Because it's a defense mechanism to protect yourself, and it's because you're in survival in your head, and it's such a web, right? It's such a convoluted web, and I think that there's so many people out there that don't get it. I think some of them don't want to get it either because they don't want to admit that they're in the situation themselves, or that they are the abuser themselves.
A lot of people don't want to accept that they are the abuser, because they feel like, because I didn't put my hands on you, it's not abuse. Right. Well, you understand, because I didn't say yes to sex, even though we're married, and you took it anyway, that's still rape? Yes. Yep. Just because you didn't put your hands on me, but you won't let me answer the phone, or you won't let me go somewhere without a time limit, or you have to know who I'm with, when I'm coming, when I'm going, what I'm wearing. Those are all abuses, and they don't want to admit that. Oh, well, I'm just taking care of you. No. Right. That's not what that is. Call a spade a spade and accept who you are and get help.
Building their self-esteem is one of the most powerful things that you can do in any capacity. And I watched myself go through that. I put myself through school and then I used to weigh 270 pounds. So I went to Tijuana and had surgery. I had adjustable lap band surgery. I lost, I was the TV commercial. I lost 100 pounds in 8 months, right? I was the perfect poster. Yeah. I mean, I was the perfect poster child.
And then I might need some of that.
No, for real. I'm like, oh man, that Rona weight is my dead ass is home and I got a full gym in my garage. You think my fat ass would be out there talking? I'm sitting up here on Instagram. You think I'd do it on my goddamn bike? Hell no, my ass is sitting here eating a motherfucking cookie. I'm like, oh, I can't work out. I can't work out. Yesterday I was 4. I'm too tired to walk to the goddamn. I got a treadmill. I got a recumbent bike. It's like sitting on the sofa and my fat ass can't. I got a TV out there. Nope, can't do it. Yeah, it's just too much. Anyway, so I with every little step that I ended up improving myself, I became a little bit stronger. And as I became stronger, he wanted to get tighter with that, and that's when I keyed in. Actually, it was my 3-year-old. When my 3-year-old said to me, "What did Daddy say that hurt you, Mommy?" Because she saw me trying to stop crying. I was like, "I'm done. I don't want." For me, the impetus was my daughter, and not letting my daughter continue to watch that so that she would end up in that. But so what I do, and that's why I say, when I talk about I'm going to use just what I do as the example for this thought, for this thread. But my organization, we say arm the women with education, confidence, and self-defense. I can't arm them with self-defense until they have the confidence to understand that their lives are worth saving to begin with, and that comes from education, right? So it's this kind of trifecta that I discovered and I figured out to get that in with women. But it's that, and the reality is the minute that a woman decides to leave, it's because she's finally found the value in herself in some capacity, right? And whether that's as a mother, right, because she's got to take care of her children, right, or there's something that's triggered for her that to help boost that, right? So you can't just throw it out there. You got to kind of like encourage them, right? When you see this happening and you're starting to see little things, encourage it, even though they're probably not getting that at home. My ex used to tell me, he forced me into a really tight schedule at work. And didn't like that. And then he encouraged me to do all these things because it made him look like the hero the more that I did, right? I ran a business full time. I was going to school to be an esthetician and I had a baby, right? And so he just looked like, to everybody else, right? That's that narcissism. He looked like the supportive husband, right? And everybody thought he was amazing, right? But all I got at home was, I was working 3 12-hour days. I was going to school 20 plus hours a week. And I actually built a salon in the middle of all that. And my daughter would want to climb on me and stuff. And I'm like, just as soon as I walked in the door, I'm like, just give me a minute, just give me a minute. And he would say, come here, honey, mommy doesn't have any time for you. Mommy doesn't want you, right? It's that kind of shit, right? So, and then I'd feel bad as a mother and this and that and other. And if we're going to be really raw about it, that still affects me to this day, right? There's a lot of things that I carried with me outside of that. And I've got my kid is amazing. Like she is so sorry. I don't know what that was all about. Amazing kid. But I still will feel guilty for some of the things that I did or didn't do, or, and I still carry that with me. And even though it wasn't my fault, because it's that wiring, but getting that confidence level to get them to understand that their lives are worth saving to begin with.
It is never in the benefit of a child to stay.
Ever.
Under any circumstances or any reason.
Louder for the people in the back.
It is
louder for the people in the back. I don't care. He can be the best father on the planet.
He can be a good father at his house, but we're going to get weird because, and for me, I had a son. That 2 things happened. One, he tried to get into the middle of a fight.
Yep.
And I was afraid that something was going to happen to him. I was now physically responsible for this child who was now recognizing what was happening, and he wanted to stop the altercation. And I didn't want to go to jail because if you had touched my kid, I would have been completely okay with killing you.
Right.
Wait a minute, and let me just put this up here because I don't want nobody to allegedly. And so I would have been okay. I would have been okay with bodily harm of another person had something happened to my child.
Right.
So, but also as a mom, I didn't want my kid to see, 1, that was okay for him to do as a man, and 2, that as a woman, that's what I was supposed to accept.
Right. Oh yeah.
And I have 2 boys, and they are the sweetest, smart-ass kids you've ever met. Like, the shade is real. But they don't have that instinct, and it's so much easier to repair them, missing a man in the house or having, great male role models than it is to hopefully catch a messed up man and get him to seek help before he damages someone else.
Yeah. I went through, so with my daughter around my breaking point, a little bit before I kicked him out, before I had him arrested, we were driving somewhere, and to speak back to the PTSD, there's a street in Colorado Springs that I will not drive down just solely because of this, because of this situation. He went to pull over in one of those self car wash locations late at night. It was dark out. And I was like, what are we doing? He was like, I'm going to whoop your ass. And I'm like, for what? Like, he was mad at me. He was mad at me for, I still don't even know exactly what happened. There was a whole bunch of situations that happened, but had nothing to do with me. But that's half of the issue with domestic violence. It has nothing to do with you sometimes. But
You just happen to be there.
my daughter was in the car. Yeah. My daughter was in the car, and she was barely 1, I think, at the time. Or no, she wasn't even 1 yet. And I'm literally leaping, like climbing over the seats in the car to escape him and trying to dial 911 on my phone at the same time. And eventually he stopped. He stopped trying to pursue me when he realized that I had already dialed 911, that the phone was ringing. So, I mean, it saved me at that point, but I realized I don't want my daughter to see this. I don't want her to I don't want this to be a part of her life. And so I went through the process. I was researching divorce as much as I could, clearing browser history and doing all of this to try to make sure that he didn't know what I was trying to do. But eventually got rid of him. Went through, not in the alleged way that Barbara was talking about, but had him arrested and extradited and all of that. So I was forced to leave him through the legal process. But now my daughter is about to be 13 next week, and I am so thankful. First of all, I'm thankful. I'm so thankful that I left. I'm so thankful for the way everything played out and I was able to leave. But even now, like, she doesn't have her father. He's in prison for the rest of his life. And the thing about it is I won't speak about us. Like, she knows what the situation was. I don't hide the fact that he was abusive, but I've been able to maintain the fact that our relationship is not her relationship. So while she talks to him and they write letters and all of that, I allow him to be her father, but I don't have to have a relationship with him. I don't talk bad about him. I tell her the truth about the matter. There's domestic violence. That's what happened. Your dad loves you. He absolutely adores you. He thinks you're the greatest thing on the world. So that what I experience of him is not what you're experiencing of him. And so I don't see any reason for anybody to have to stay in a relationship with somebody for the kids. For any circumstance. You don't have to talk bad about the other parent. You don't have to have a toxic relationship. You can still co-parent. I will talk to him about her. I check him if he says something that I don't like, because I'm raising her on my own. Like I said, he's in prison for the rest of his life. We still have that co-parenting relationship, but I don't have to have a relationship with him in order for her to have a relationship with him. I don't have to stay in a situation with him for them. I don't have to talk to him at this point, especially now that she's old enough. I don't have to communicate with him at all. In all honesty, I'm doing this. She talks to him about whatever she wants to talk to him about. She tells me what the conversation was, and that's it. There's no reason to stay in a relationship at all with anybody who's abusive.
Yeah, and that's one of the most frustrating things that you hear, and that's one of those things where I've had to put boundaries up with clients in my salon. Well, I'll wait till the kids. I'm like, right, because they're there, right? They're like they're there. Like, I'm not going to be able to convince them otherwise. So it's just like we were talking about earlier. Okay, you let me know when you're ready, because I'll be, you know what I mean? And because sometimes you're not going to get through, unfortunately. So you just have to be there, like Cassandra was saying, be there when they're ready to come to you and be that resource. But kids are usually one of the biggest factors for that. Unfortunately, I got lucky. Mine took off. So he's not seen her since she was 5, and my husband is amazing. So she's got a wonderful father. But that's an unusual situation. I get that. I totally get that. But it's not the case, and then it's a worry all the time, about, because I would worry, right? What is he saying to her, right? What's he saying to her, whatever. Hey, Crystal. So my girl Crystal just came in. Hey, sis, how's it going? So these are some of the people that follow me, and Paul actually volunteers with my organization, so he keeps my website and stuff up to date.
Awesome. I'm looking at the questions, and I'm like, I think we've hit them all.
Yeah,
I love it. So we made it a little over an hour. So what I want to do, Paul said hi. Paul. Yeah, they're talking.
It's all good.
I want Cassandra and Carrie, I'll give you each a turn, but give us your business information, and then when you get a chance, type it out in the comments. That way, if somebody wants to reach out to you, if they have further questions, if they want to be involved with your organization, something like that. Kim, if you have an organization that you're working with, support, or anything that you want to share with somebody, advocacy program, something like that that you found helpful, I'll give you a chance to do that as well. And then we'll go around and everybody just give us a message that you want people to remember about domestic violence, and then something good for the following week, something to help us get through this week. Cassandra, I'll start with you.
Okay. The message I want to give is, oh, you want the information first, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And it's right now you can reach me at CassandraCooks@gmail.com. My business cards is being made right now. So if you just email me at CassandraCooks@gmail.com for now, I'll give you further information, but that will work for now. But the message that I want to give is to just talk to someone, and it's okay to speak out. It's okay to break that silence. Don't worry about anybody judging you. Don't worry about being embarrassed, because I was embarrassed. I didn't want anybody to know. But then I found out later that it's okay. If there's anybody at your church that you trust, please talk to them. There's no reason that you will have to stay in that situation. It may take a while. No, you don't have to stay in it for the kids, but some people do. We get that. And in due time, you will leave. It may take months, I don't know, but in due time you will leave, and you do not have to stay in that situation. But break the silence and know that you are not alone. You are not alone.
Awesome. Carrie, you're on mute. There you go.
Because I can't access the group chat to leave these comments, so I'm putting it in the private chat so somebody can cut and paste it and put it up there. For some reason, I can't do that. So I'm over here, all of my bullshit.
Sorry. Good. And I'll copy and paste it in there.
Thank you. So 1 in 4 women, and then that varies. I've also seen 1 in 3. 1 in 4 women are victims of some sort of domestic violence. 1 in approximately 7 men. So know that when Cassandra says you are not alone, you are definitely not alone. I mean, in fact, if you want to go even farther, if you really want to go bigger, I mean, right? Almost all women have been sexually assaulted in some way, right? I mean, you know what I mean? Either, catcall, whatever, depending on the degree. But the biggest thing that I tell people is understand that that while these ladies made the comment, that it is super important to, get those records, right? Get those records, those restraining orders, and do all that kind of stuff. But if you're being abused, understand that we need to find you some place that you can be in to set a boundary for yourself to defend yourself, because the cops will never get there in time, especially right now. With all this mess going on, especially if you're in a bigger city. So it's important to make sure, and I'm not saying that you need a gun. There's de-escalation, there's a defensive mindset. There's other types of things that you can learn and train. Taking a hand-to-hand class, sometimes you can get those under the radar is just going to work out. Right. Mm-hmm. So there's little things that you can do. And those are things that I help you with. I help to give you some of those tools that can help you kind of protect yourself until you can get out of that situation. And do what you need to do. So, but it is not your fault, I think is probably the best thing that I want to tell you, because I even remember afterward sitting there thinking, I wouldn't be going through this if I hadn't called the cops, right? All the headache afterward. But it is absolutely not your fault, no matter how much you think it is. And the other piece of that is understand that you are a good parent. The fact that you've made the conscious decision to actually leave makes you a great parent. The fact that you don't want your boys to become abusers, or you don't want your girls to pick abusers. The big thing is that, staying for the children, like we were talking about, that is never, ever, ever the right idea. And the best thing that you could do for your children is to get out. And that actually makes you an amazing parent, no matter what anybody says to you. You can find me at We the Female all over all the different platforms, all the different social media platforms, or Stilettos and Shotguns. And if you want to speak to me directly, I actually travel all around the country doing public speaking and teaching defensive mindset and situational awareness, which applies to all women, whether you're shopping at Target or, in your home and who's around you. And I teach those classes. They're free community service classes that I do. I have an organization that pays for me to travel to do it. So you're welcome to
like we can. It was like, can we get a Zoom class or something going on here?
Yeah, absolutely. You want to do it? Yes, absolutely. Message me and we will. You want to set it up as a Zoom class? I will do it as a Zoom class. It's about 2
now, but
Yeah, I can do that for you.
So Carrie,
it's about 2.5 hours long.
So Carrie, what is it that you teach?
So, I teach firearms instruction. That's one thing I teach, but I teach defensive mindset, situational awareness. I teach you essentially how to retrain your brain to always think, to be aware of your surroundings, to de-escalate a situation, how to avoid conflict, how to do everything that you can to not put yourself in a situation where you may have to defend yourself with lethal force, if that's the case, or just to be a victim, right? It's essentially like a not a victim kind of a training. And I've been teaching that for a few years now. And it's like I said, it's literally everything from, for example, how many exits are in your Target or your Walmart you go to? Do you know?
I mean,
probably not, right? You should probably, right? You should probably know that, right? So, see, are there more, right? Because there's also the areas where they receive cargo. Right, the big trucks that come in and deliver. There's pharmacy entrances that are at the back where the employees come in and out. There's all those kind of things, right? Because people tell you it's a mass shooting. You got to worry. Nah, you're more likely to like earthquake, fire. Homeboy at the bakery loses his shit and chases everybody with a knife. That's far more likely than that. But to understand that, right? To put yourself in a situation where you're always watching everybody around you, including what's going on in your home, because in your home. No, girl, Crystal, listen, you're going to have me out there. I'm getting ready to go. I'm actually getting ready to travel to Virginia. I just paid my deposit today. She and I are getting ready to go take a basic pistol class together. So, those principles will apply to victims in their home. When they see that shit escalating, it helps you to start recognizing that you see what shit's going on. And you even though it bugs you, you want to de-escalate that at that point, right? You want to keep them calm so that it doesn't escalate. And so a lot of that technique that eventually that becomes mindset for you will turn into that. The kicker, and what I love about it, is that starts to give women self-esteem and starts to allow them to, which goes back to that whole education, confidence, self-defense thing. So that's what I do. And it really helps to kind of put that, to start your mind, right? You're going to feel paranoid when you start going to the Walmart or whatever when you first, but eventually you'll be like in your zone, and then you'll realize how you're just going to start living it every day. And then you're going to realize, oh, he's on his bullshit, right? On a different level than you normally would when you go home. And it's going to be able to put you in a position to be more on the offense instead of the defense in your mind. Right. And as soon as you're in that space, guess what happens? Your self-esteem comes up, and your self-esteem comes up, you get out. So that's what I do. So We the Female, just my direct one. I won't send you through the website. They're wethefemale.net. It's my website, but wethefemaleofficial@gmail.com. It's over here in those comments, and y'all can reach me. But yeah, we'll do it as a Zoom class.
Okay. So do you mind coming to, because I would like for you to come, if you don't mind, just coming to Texas.
Yeah.
We could talk later off air and come and teach us women.
Yep.
To defend ourselves, and I would love to connect with you and partner with you in that area, if that's okay.
I would love to do that. I would love to come in and talk about that. Absolutely. And I will also set you up, because that lady Tasha, tactical social worker I told you about earlier, I think she's in the Dallas area. So okay. I could be wrong about that, but you guys have some amazing instructors, and working in the Black community as well, and which I think is important. Like I love it, and so I'm all kinds of an ally about that, and I think they're in the Dallas area. So,
all right, Kim, what you got?
Well, I would say to anybody who's who's been through this or going through this, I think the most important thing to know is that it's not your fault, and you didn't do anything to deserve this. I can look back and I've been spit on and pistol whipped and raped and all these things that he did to me, and I can't identify a reason now as to why I deserved that. There was nothing I did, and in all honesty, you haven't done anything wrong. You don't deserve it, and I think there's so many tools and resources that are available now, and I love it. I love hearing all of this stuff that was available, and I wish I'd known it back then. And one thing I would say for anybody who is sympathetic to what the victims and survivors are going through, you know, there are tons of organizations, as we're hearing about. There's organizations to help people to get out. I don't know if anybody else knew this, but I learned this after I got out, that there's organizations that'll fly you to places where your family are or what have you. Like they'll fly you to, you know, whatever other state, because it's harder for you to get back to that abuser when you're separated. And that's the thing that helped me, was having, when he was extradited, he wasn't in jail, but he couldn't get to where I was, and I wasn't in a financial place to get to where he was. So that's what helped us heal. And so there's organizations that'll drive you to wherever you need to go, that'll fly you to wherever you need to go. They'll buy you a Greyhound ticket. They'll do this stuff. So if anybody is in a place where they want to help and they can financially help, I would definitely encourage them to support those types of organizations, because it costs money and most of the survivors can't. And another thing, you know, when we're talking about helping out, donating clothes to all of these shelters, because a lot of women do leave in the middle of the night. And one thing that I know people have mixed feelings on this. I personally don't see anything wrong with it, but they're looking for bras. So hey, if you have a bra that doesn't fit you, wash it and bring it to a shelter, because they, again, leave in the middle of the night. Sometimes they don't have bras, and that's not ever donated. So these are the things that I hear about when I talk to a lot of the shelters, is they're looking for that type of aid to get people transported, and even just those smaller clothing items. Wash a bra and send it in. So yeah,
I would love that. I absolutely love that. Hang on just a second. We've got a couple of comments. Paul said that The Gift of Fear is an essential book to read. Tiffany said Families to Freedom helps with transportation here in the DFW area.
yeah.
I had no idea that they would fly and bus people out. That's fantastic. I wish I had known that. I know both of y'all wanted to say something.
So that book, The Gift of Fears, that book is fantastic, and it's actually written not necessarily for domestic violence specifically, but the man that wrote it was a victim of violent crime. He's a psychologist, and he started interviewing people, and he found the one thing that every single victim of violence had went through is that they knew it was going to happen first, and they didn't trust their instinct. So rather than being fearful, it spins it and teaches you how to use that fear as a weapon and an asset to be able to help you fight back. So like I said, those are the types of things, like we talk about, their building blocks, right? As we've talked about, like you build the relationships, you develop trust, you be there for these people, right? You can't just come in and go, yo, bitch, let's go. We're going to get your ass out of here. Like, that doesn't work. So
it would be nice.
And wouldn't it be nice? If we could do that, and then we could take these MFers out and shoot them in the backyard, and we'd be done, right? Look, and let's be real. You do that a few times, and some of that shit's going to slow down real up and fast.
They learn.
That's what I'm saying, right? Because these motherfuckers are getting out, right? The goddamn governors and the shitting ass mayors are letting them out of jail because domestic violence is through the roof right now. I'm on my bullshit now.
If they go to jail, and if the governors and the president and stuff like that, aren't racist and molesters and everything themselves. I didn't say that out loud, did I? But that's
the thing. Well, I don't like politicians, period. So I don't. There's one, Thomas Massey. That's the only dude that, like, he's the only guy I trust. And I've got a video of him, like, calling out the government. He's like, I'm not scared of the president. Have him bring Air Force One and Railroad One or Amtrak One. I don't give a crap. Like, he's a congressman from Kentucky. He's great. The only one. But so what we do with books like The Gift of Fear is that it helps to start to just build that self-esteem for being able to be aware. And then you'll start being aware of, like, you'll be able to catch when your abuser is starting to do that shit early. right? So instead of you ignoring your instinct, you'll start to trust your instinct so that you can start navigating around it and avoid escalation. Not that it's your, let me be clear, it is never your fault. You are not escalating. But sometimes you have to take responsibility for keeping it from getting worse. It's just being responsible for your own safety, kind of a thing. And even though it's not your fault, which is fucked up, I know, but unfortunately that's kind of the situation we're in. So that book is wonderful. And then my organization does do help, and we also do self-defense, legal protection, and that type of stuff as well. So,
Cassandra, what were you going to say?
To Kim, I would like to get with you too, Kim, because I get a lot of donations from people. Right now, I don't know if you know anybody needs some furniture. I have furniture in my garage. I have clothes that people donate to me. I heard you mention bras. I will put that word out, to get some bras, and so you can give me your information so that way I can connect with you. And once I get those donations in, I can call you up and you can pass it on.
Awesome.
Hey, the spot to go out in here in DFW is Genesis Women's Shelter, and I know I saw Michelle mention it earlier in her comment, but yeah, they're amazing. They take their donations and put them into a thrift store, and so the women and the children are able to come in and basically pick out clothes and whatever their needs are for free, and then they open the thrift store to the public, and so that's how they keep running, is through the thrift store, but based off of those donations. So I'm sure that they would definitely be able to take the furniture and be able to stick that in the thrift store. I would assume so, and they take donations all throughout the week. So that's going to be, I would say, probably the best route to go. But there are tons of shelters. I know it's not easy to find them because they have to remain pretty discreet, but there are definitely tons of shelters available, and I'm sure I mean, I have a whole list of them in my inbox.
I've talked to them before. Actually, I was before, it's probably been a couple of years ago, I was going to volunteer with them before I started Voices of the Youth. I would reach out to them again. What I can help them with. I'll reach out to them.
Oh yeah, there's a ton all throughout here. It's a big thing in Texas. I know it's a big thing everywhere, but definitely there are a lot of shelters that are in need.
This makes my heart happy. I started this podcast because I got a lot of crap to talk about, and it's usually something ratchet. It's usually something uncomfortable, and it needs to be said. And I'm one of those people that, I am completely inappropriate. I'm going to laugh during a funeral kind of people. I'm going to be okay with the uncomfortable conversation. So the people that wanted to do it with me, welcome. I'll always tell you, like I do every week, be uncomfortable. Be okay with being uncomfortable. Be okay with questioning everything. Understand that you're not alone. Reach out. My email is running across the bottom. It's thespirituallyratchet@gmail.com. Obviously, if you would like to support me, there's a Cash App available. You can also do advertisements and sponsoring, but that's not so much the big deal. My biggest deal is come in, have a conversation, share these videos with other people, because you never know who it's going to impact. Somebody may only get a chance to hang out on Facebook. And that's their permission, that's their escape, and this is something that they can watch while they're on Facebook. You never know who you're impacting. And for the week, do something that you would normally say no to. Let's be courageous and bold this week. And I love the bottom, like always, meditate and cuss, eat fruit and wings, hydrate with water and whiskey, praise the Lord and twerk for spinal health. All right, cheers, you guys. Have a great night. Thank you for hanging out.
Eat all the ice cream.